Hello guys, and welcome back to the CCNA video series brought to you by ABY Design and Tech. In this video, we are going to take what we have learned from the previous video in regards to variable length subnetting, and we're now going to apply this to some examples so that we can really cement this knowledge and understand what's going on. So let's dive straight in, guys. Question 1. Company X wants to implement VLSM with class C network 192.168.200.0/24. So pause the video, work through this yourself, and when you think you've got the answer, play it, and then I'll show you how I would approach this. So I'm under the assumption that you have given this a try yourself, so now watch how I would work through this. So I would obviously just use my process that we covered in the previous video. So let's list out each LAN segment going from largest to smallest. So the largest LAN segment needs 100 hosts. The next largest needs 50 hosts. The one after that needs about 10 hosts. And then the last two after that need 2 hosts. Now I need to work out my subnet mask for each LAN segment. Again, we go from the largest down to the smallest. So to allow for 100 hosts per subnet, or for this subnet, I need 7 host bits. Now to work out my subnet mask, I take the host bits and I subtract that from 32. So in this case, 32 minus 7 gives me 25. A /25 will be my subnet mask for this LAN segment over here. My subnet mask for this guy is going to be so 6 host bits. 32 minus 6 gives me a /26. To allow for 10 hosts per subnet, I need 4 host bits, which will give me 32 minus 4 as /28. And to allow for 2 hosts for a single subnet, I need a /30. Now you'll notice that a /30 you'll be able to recognize straight away. The reason being is because you will have many point-to-point links in your network. Because literally all a point-to-point link is, it's one device on either end. It could be switches, it could be routers, it could be anything, to be honest. So now that we've worked out our subnet masks, let's go around and assign a subnet ID to each LAN segment. Again, we start off with the largest and work our way down through to the smallest. So the first subnet ID that I will assign will be assigned to this guy over here, and that is going to be 192.168.200.0/25. So all we did is take that class C network and apply that custom size subnet mask. Now before I go any further, I need to work out the next valid subnet ID with a /25 mask. So in this case, /25, that's got a 1 bit in the 4th octet of the subnet mask followed by 7 binary zeros. So if I write that down in my chart, etc., imagine these were zeros, that gives me an increment of 128. 128 in the 4th octet, that means the next valid IP address for the subnet ID will be 192.168.200.128. So what does that mean? That means that when I calculate the subnet ID for this guy over here, I can't use a subnet ID which is less than 192.168.200.128, as that means we will have address overlaps, in that the range of addresses covered by this guy will overlap with the range of addresses covered by this guy over here. So now let's work out this second subnet. So at /26, our increment is going to be 64 because we have 2 binary 1s in that 4th octet. The last binary 1 lands on the 64 column. So we know that we have an increment of 64. So let's now increment 64 in the 4th octet. 64, 128. So pretty simple. Our next available subnet is going to be 192.168.200.128/26. Now let's work out what subnet we should assign to this guy over here. Again, before we do that, let's look at our next available subnet with a /26 subnet mask. So the increment is going to be 64. That gives me .192 as the next available subnet ID. Now for 10 hosts, we needed a /28 subnet mask, which allows for 16 IP addresses or 14 usable IP addresses once we use the formula. Now the increment is going to be 16. So 16, if we go up in increments of 16, the 10th available subnet will be 160, then the next one 172, and then the 12th available subnet will be 192. So that means that the subnet I will assign to this guy over here will be 192 168.200.192/28. Now again, to work out my next available subnet ID, or to work out this subnet range, I go and look for the next subnet with this subnet mask. So in this case, 16 added onto this gives me .208. Okay, now for these last two subnets, they're both using a /30 subnet mask, which allows for 2 usable IP addresses per subnet. A /30 has an increment of 4. So now let's go up in multiples of 4 until we get to the next available subnet, which is after 208. So in this case, 40, 80, 120, 160, 200, 204, 208. So that means the next available subnet is going to be 192.168.200.208/30. And then if we add 4 over to this, that gives me 192.168.200.212/30. So again, that's my next available subnet ID, which I can assign to this point-to-point link over here. So as you can see, this question was pretty easy to work through. And this is why it's so important to start with the largest subnet. Because as you can see, the subnets kind of fit together if you start off from the largest subnets. In this case, I started off with 192.168.200.0/25. Now the next available subnet is .128. And guess what? That is exactly what I assigned to this guy over here, but with a /26 subnet mask. And then the next available subnet after that with this subnet mask is 192. And guess what? That's the next subnet ID I assigned to this guy over here with a /28 subnet mask. Now, the next available subnet with a /28 subnet mask over here is going to be 208. And guess what? Guess what? I don't even need to tell you. That is the next subnet ID that I assign to the point-to-point link over there, and then +4 gives me 212, and that's the next available subnet I assign to that guy over there. So as you can see, by starting off with the largest subnet and working our way down, the subnet IDs kind of fit together and they flow, which makes it easier for us to calculate. So that's all there is to it, and that is the first question done. We have got another question coming up next. If you have enjoyed this video and would like to see more content like this, then please subscribe to my channel, and thank you very much for watching.